And Jeff, it will just be the four of us. Is that correct?
As far as I know, Ian will not be with us unless Mark shamed him hard enough that he is.
I worked hard too, believe me. And I really did shame him. There's some important issues tonight. And he said he helped write the program for the exhibit. So he feels obliged to be there for the opening.
Oh, that's right. It's the opening. My brother's actually the one who talked them into doing it in the first place.
Ah,
Because
well,
he's very close to them and he was out there sort of curating what they had out there. Because he was one of the directors up at Peabody Essex Museum in Salem. He's retired and lives in Portugal now on the
wow,
coast.
fancy.
Yes, but it's
Fancy,
a lot,
fancy.
it's half the cost of living here. Crazy.
It's crazy. All right. Well, it is 5 o'clock and we do have quorum. So I will open the May 26th Nantucket Conservation Commission meeting. Just as a reminder, this meeting is being held entirely remotely via Zoom. So everybody is participating from their own locations. I ask that everybody please mute your device when you're not speaking so that you're not picked up by the meeting recording. If you do wish to speak, please raise your hand in your camera window or virtually and wait to be recognized. If you are recognized to speak, please state your full name for the minutes so that we can get that down accurately. And I think that is basically it. So we will begin tonight's meeting
Paul.
under public meeting, public comment.
Yes, Paul. Wow.
We will begin tonight's meeting under public meeting, public comment.
That was pretty exciting.
I was busy looking at the agenda, so.
Well, good thing. I have one question for you, Ashley. When do they make the appointment to the Conservation Commission? Do we know the date?
It's June 22nd.
Thank you.
Yes. And I believe, Seth, if I'm correct, you guys will be able to speak on your own behalf at next Wednesday's select board meeting.
That's correct.
Yeah, I think the Dog and Pony Show is next Wednesday.
Okay.
Ah, will that
And
be
the
live?
other appointments, I think are on the 29th because that deadline is, I believe, next week.
Will the 26th be live? I mean, yeah, coming
They're
up.
meeting in person, the select one.
Yeah.
But I
Yes.
think they have a hybrid. So if you can't make it, Seth, to the meeting, you can still Zoom in and talk that way. I think a lot of you guys are going to be doing that.
Yeah. So yes, that is appointments. I don't see, I might need to refresh my YouTube. I don't see any public comment on YouTube at this point.
You want us to adopt the agenda?
No, I just was waiting for public comment and struggling to toggle windows on my small screen. So it does not appear that we have public comment tonight. So the following items are continued under Jeff.
I just really quickly, Madam Chair, not to interrupt the continuances, but it's relevant to this. The land bank at 17 Aurora Way has, instead of continuing, requested to withdraw. So we can take that one up later. And then Act Hang 10 at 21 Meter Street has also requested a continuance to 6/9 when you go through the list.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
What was that one, Madam Chairman? Which one was that one? Meter Street?
Yeah, so
Okay.
yeah. So the following items are continued. We have 13 Commercial Street LLC at 13 Commercial Wharf, continued until June 9th. We have Brant Point Club LLC at 6 and 8 North Beach Street and 4 Dolphin Court, continued until June 23rd. We have Kane at 12 Pond Road, continued until June 9th. And then we have Hang 10 LLC at 21 Meter Street, and Jeff is continuing to June 9th. And then under amended orders of conditions, we have Phillips trustee at 19 East Tristram Ave, continued until June 9th. So with that, we will begin under notices of intent. And we have Meyer at 307 Pulpus Road, represented by Art Gasparo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before you tonight with a follow-up public hearing for the application at 307 Pulpus Road, which is essentially some residential redevelopment. To refresh your memory, that included construction of a new house, renovation of an existing structure, installation of a swimming pool outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, reconfiguration of the driveway and moving it from within the 25-foot buffer zone to outside of the buffer zone, and moving a small garage and creating a new garage further away from the wetland. There was some questions from the commission at the first hearing, which we provided supplemental information as to groundwater and the type of foundation, and changed that to a crawl space, and have provided the 2-foot separation distance for the structures. And we also have been the part of the reason for the more lengthy delay on the continuances was that Natural Heritage had responded and requested a botanical survey for St. Andrew's Cross, which was conducted by Brian Madden in accordance with the protocols established by Natural Heritage. Didn't find any occurrences, and we have received the sign off from Natural Heritage, which has also been provided to the commission. So I'm happy to, we've provided the supplemental information with respect to the foundation. And again, I think that overall the project does represent an improvement, especially considering how close the existing driveway is to the vegetated wetland. The new structures have been maintained outside of the 50-foot buffer zone, and the property is also already served by an innovative alternative technology septic system. And pretty much all of the work is also located within areas of the property that are lawn or meadow. There's not much for additional clearing, if you will. It's a residential use property, and as it will stay. And so we'd be happy to address questions, comments, or concerns that the commission might have with the application.
Thank you, Art. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Mark?
Yes, thank you, Ashley. Art, am I looking at the lot line where the driveway goes off on Valerie Osley's lot?
That's correct. There's an easement for that in place.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Looks like no. So we'll open 307 Pulpus Road up for public comment. Does not appear that we have any public comment on YouTube at this point. Jeff, I know we now have Heritage, so are we all set to close?
Yes.
Okay. Art, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a
I'll make
motion to close?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Linda. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Seth. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously,
Thank
Not
you.
used to coming after E.
right? I know. Well, it's hard. I end up going through the roll call with everybody anyway, so I might end up inserting someone who's not here. So the next one we have is Nantucket Islands Land Bank, 17 Aurora Way, and we just need to move to accept the withdrawal.
So moved.
I think Mark got you on the motion.
Second.
I'll give
Second.
one a second. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
Great, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to Lairman Dynasty Trust at 18 Washing Pond Road.
What happened to Nicholson, Madam Chairman? Did Nicholson go over? Or I have an old agenda?
You might have an old agenda.
Sorry, Linda, we actually forgot to take that off the original agenda, but that closed and was issued at the last meeting.
That's what I thought, the last meeting. All right. I'm not that crazy. I'm crazy, but not that crazy.
So Lairman Dynasty Trust, I know we have Mark Ritz on. We also have Dan Bailey on, possibly Dan Malloy.
Good afternoon, Mark Ritz, representing the applicants at 18 Washington Pond Road. I'm here with Dan Bailey and Dan Malloy. At the last meeting, we had discussed installing stairs to provide access over the existing structures. It took us a little while to circle back with our client and finally get everything squared away. And we have the go-ahead to do that, but we have not yet finalized the design. So we don't have a plan to show the commission yet, but we are working on that. I believe there were also some outstanding questions for Jeff as of the last meeting. And I'd be happy to answer anything else that has come up.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Mark Beal?
Did we ever resolve the issue of the building being totally rebuilt after 1978? And that eliminates their protections?
I
I,
think Dan Malloy has an answer to that one.
okay. Dan?
Actually, I don't have, I think that was a town council question to do with whether or not that's even applicable to a grandfathered structure of being the bulkhead itself. At the last meeting, the commission was looking to get some clarification from town council. That was one of the things you were looking for.
Right.
Yes, and I know Ian had requested that. I think, from what I remember, the structure is not, it does not qualify for protection. But again, as Dan just said, the actual erosion control structure that we're looking at is old enough to be grandfathered, so.
Madam Chair, if I could just jump in on that, because it's a subtle distinction, but it's important. And that's right, the structure itself isn't protected, but the erosion control structure is grandfathered because it pre-existed the bylaw. So, you know, the way this sometimes comes up is a CES gets rebuilt, and then an applicant goes and rebuilds the structure.
Yes,
And that's probably what happened here.
yes. Thank you for that clarification. Seth, I'll go to you and then Mark.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to Mr. Bailey for that clarification. I do agree that the structure, the coastal engineering structure, the bulkhead and groin system was built before the adoption of the Wetlands Protection Act or our local regulations. But if you look carefully within the Nantucket local regulations, in the performance standards for coastal banks, it specifically says that bulkheads and groins may only be rebuilt if their commission determines there's no environmentally better way to control an erosion problem, including in appropriate cases, moving of the threatened building. Well, in this case, the threatened building was effectively moved. It was removed. And then another building that didn't qualify for that protection was put there. So in my opinion, the coastal engineering structure is not available to be rebuilt anymore because the alternative has already been done. The threatened building has been moved. I'll leave it to town council to, interpret that from a legal perspective, but from a regulatory perspective, I think that is an important distinction as well.
Thank you, Seth. So I'm going to go to Mark and then Linda, I'll go to you.
Thank you, Ashley. Dan, I totally don't mean to have any disrespect here, but I couldn't quite understand what you were saying. I mean, it sounded like doublespeak a little bit when you said it does and it doesn't have protection. So go over that again for me, would you?
Sure.
You know, the structure does have protection.
I'll try to be a little bit clearer. Maybe this example will help you. Let's pretend for a minute that there was no cottage there. I don't know whether it was or wasn't there, but we do know it was rebuilt. But let's pretend it wasn't there when the coastal engineering structure was built. The coastal engineering structure itself is grandfathered. So I disagree with Seth because I don't think we even get to the performance standards. They don't apply because it's a grandfathered structure, which we have the right to rebuild.
Thank you, Dan. And this is
Okay.
that's the loophole why old coal plants can still blast dirty air up into the environment because they're grandfathered. Linda, I'll go to you, and then Seth, I saw you.
I know there's an issue with the removal and the replacement of that house that's down there, but in point of fact, I don't think, because I'm just looking at it from an HCC and from a building code perspective. The foundation did not go, which protects the location and the rebuild of the structure where it is located. And it's on this, it looks like it's the same footprint. It was a shorter structure than what's there now. But it had other weird things on the roof. I think it had dormers, and I'm not sure they have dormers now or vice versa, but it's the same location, the same foundation, the same everything. I don't know if they have foundation remaining and being repaired and a new structure put in that location, which today they couldn't put back there. Makes a difference as to whether it was removed entirely and rebuilt, and maybe in some opinions, they lose the grandfathering or the protection of what it was protecting before. I'm not sure about that, but I think that needs to be sort of considered with town council also.
Thank you, Linda. That's a it would be great if we could get these building department records submitted to be part of our record, just so it's there for the public and very clearly laid out. But town council's opinion would be great. Jeff, and then Seth, I'll go to you.
If you want to go to Seth first, in case he's got a question that I'm going to touch on, that way we can get it all at once. I think that's fine.
Okay, so Seth, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Mr. Bailey. I respect your opinion. I'm not going to argue it here in this forum, but we see different ways on that. I do have a question for Mr. Ritz, though. So thank you for doing the alternatives analysis that I had requested, I believe, 2 meetings ago. I was not at the last meeting, but I did view the recording. And so it seems to me that there's the bulkhead is protecting against erosion. The groins, what they're doing is seasonally trapping sand. All right, so given where that bulkhead is and how much it's interacting with high water on a daily basis, and I know there was some confusion about if that's changed or if that's been there since the beginning of the permit life. That's not really my point here. My point is, so you're seasonally trapping sand with these groins, but wouldn't it be better to do one of the things that I talked about, like building up the beach in front of that bulkhead? I know you said, I did read what you said, and it seems like it is going to take some technical challenges, but building up that beach in front of that bulkhead with some type of planting, some type of beach nourishment, I think is going to be much better in the long run, even if they kept the bulkhead there, because we're getting this peninsular effect where those groins are trapping that sand, but they're not allowing, the sediment to be transported east and west of that site. I think there may be a case for doing something that's in between the two. There might be keeping the bulkhead there, but doing something else in front of that bulkhead that's not a groin, because I understand it's, has a license and it predates the Wetlands Protection Act, but I just don't think that it's going to be a long-term effective solution to really stabilizing that site there.
Thank you, Seth. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, a couple points there. When the groins do trap sediment seasonally from both directions, and when there is significant sediment trapped there seasonally, it does bypass the groins because the bulge of sand extends. It was visible in a few of the aerial photos. It extends as a lobe that goes out well beyond both groins. So there is bypass when it is you filled to capacity by seasonal entrapment. As far as doing nourishment, again, DMF commented that any expansion of structure or alteration of nourishment from what was previously done there would result in adverse impact to shellfish habitat. So they were not supportive of additional nourishment on site. And, we could, we only really have the ability to nourish between the two groins and very slightly on our flanks where we control the property. If we go out beyond that, either to the east or to the west, we are now working on abutting properties that we don't have control over and don't have the ability to do work on. And in order to do sort of an effective beach nourishment in that area, we would have to extend laterally quite a bit beyond our own site. So it's not just, technical challenges, it's challenges of working on property that we don't have rights or control over.
Thank you, Mark. Jeff, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I just wanted to give an update a little bit on the request to town council. So when we request legal services from town council, there's kind of a checklist of things that I have to do to get permission from town administration to have town council review and provide comments on that. I'm happy to share the form if people want to see it at some point. One of the steps that we have to do is obviously go through and see if there's any other, decisions locally that have been made like this, whether through its court or not. And then one of the steps that we have to do is also reach out to essentially to other communities and our colleagues in other communities for if they've dealt with, sorry about this, other issues of a similar nature as well. So we're lucky enough that one of the groups that we participate is just in the conservation agent network for the Cape and the islands. So I kind of threw this question out to the whole group of them, and they discussed it at they have a kind of a bi-weekly Zoom that they get together and they discuss either a pending application or one that was existing or something that was interesting. And they talked about this one, and Greg Berman sent me a little bit of a summary. He's kind of the ringleader of that group. And they went through, they had a couple questions that were kind of interesting, but not really germane to the application, that dealt with the history a little bit. The overall conclusion of that group was that in most cases that we can think of, a CES can be maintained as long as there is no expansion. And then they kind of talk about it a little bit more, where if there are, seemingly, let's see if I just go through correctly and kind of get through, where there may be an exception where the conditions have overwhelmingly changed, that may take a little different view. But I think their kind of general opinion was that as long as the structure is being maintained in kind with what was originally there, that would be in keeping with what they've seen across the Cape and Martha's Vineyard. So I have that, and I sent that in with our legal request to town administration for George to weigh in. But that was kind of their opinion. So if that's any help to anyone, that's great. I'll clean that up and send it along to everybody. There was a lot of other chit chat about other projects and things kind of mixed in. So I'll snip out the part that's relevant. But that was what that group had to say. I think one of the things that's kind of interesting is we've dug into a little bit more as well, is what's there has also been in fairly recent history, been reviewed and approved by the commission as recently as 2007 for those structures. And all of those, and one of the things that we looked at a little bit was whether those decisions that were made for modifying the groins from 3 to 2, all of those decisions were made and issued by the commission post the house reconstruction, relocation, redo, rebuild. After that, and then the certificates of compliance that go with those didn't necessarily have anything that was ongoing to go with them. So that's another kind of added wrinkle, that there's structures that have been approved by the commission before, post that. I'm not saying that commissions in the past are always right and make the right decision, but looking at the history of it, that kind of went into it too when we looked at it for getting stuff ready for town council. So that's kind of what we've collected. We're waiting to hear back from them. So hopefully we'll have that soon, but that's where we are in that process.
Thank you, Jeff. So Mark, I see your hand up, and then Seth, I'll go to you.
Thank you, Ashley. I have a question for Mr. Bailey. Under Chapter 91, are you allowed to do improvements on the east and west flanks of your barrier?
So is the question whether the groins are approved under Chapter 91?
No. Can you? There's already evidence from over aerial photography that you're losing ground on the west side.
Yeah.
And eventually it's gonna eat into the real estate behind the groin. So under your Chapter 91, are you permitted to extend that groin on the east and west flank?
No, we'd have to go back to Chapter 91 for permission to extend it. I mean, we're allowed to repair, with beach nourishment, et cetera. But any structural extension would require approval under 91. If it's a small extension, we might be able to get it done under a minor modification. But if it was anything material, it would require an amendment of the license.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Seth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple quick points. Thank you to Jeff for that summary. And I think it's important to give credence to the history, but it is important to remember that past decisions of commissions don't bind the current commission. I think also one thing that is relevant here when we talk to town council, so the provision in the grandfathered use, it says use and normal maintenance. I know I've said in our regulatory update, we need a definition of what normal maintenance means, but since we don't have that yet, we, I guess, need a legal opinion about what normal maintenance means. And then just lastly, well, actually, those are my 2 points for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. So this is kind of a philosophical question, but kind of goes along with Mark, your question. What is the ultimate end of these structures when clearly they won't survive into the future indefinitely? And what's the transition for a property like this one? And I think that's what the commission's getting at with Seth requesting to look at an alternatives analysis. Eventually there does need to be an alternative here. So I think we're getting at that right now, because I don't think it's likely that this commission or future commissions are likely to extend bulkheads when they start to get kind of undermined from behind in big storms. So, what do we do here? I do, and I said this last meeting, I do think in this case, given that the structure does have grandfathering, and they are willing to add stairs going over. Although I do not enjoy groins being rebuilt at this time and place, I do see the validity of this application. So at this point, if there aren't any more comments or questions from commissioners, I'll open it up for public comment. It does not appear that we have public comment on YouTube at this point. I think Jeff Carlson might have stepped away for a moment. I know, we still haven't heard an opinion from town council. Jeff, do we have everything we would need to close this one if the applicants would like to close?
You do have all of the required information, yes.
Okay. Seth, go ahead.
Yes, Madam Chair, I would like to see the schematic of the stair set that they're proposing, if they're willing to wait for that.
No, I think that would be nice to have a complete application before we close.
I would support that, actually. Prior to closing, we ought to have those stairs plans.
Okay. So Mark and Mr. Bailey, are you guys willing to continue for 2 weeks or as long as you need to get the stair plans in?
Yes,
Yes, I think we'll continue to get that completed for the commission.
Okay. So then this will continue until June 9th.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so that moves us on to Waterfront Pacomo LLC at 17 Loretta Lane, represented by Art Gasparo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm before you tonight with essentially another residential redevelopment project for work within the buffer zone to vegetated wetlands, coastal bank, coastal beach, and we're also located within land subject to coastal storm flowage. It's a fairly constrained site all the way at the end of Loretta Lane, fronting on Nantucket Harbor, with a existing main house and cottage on it now, served by an IA septic system. And what we're proposing to do, I believe, represents a significant net benefit in terms of removing the existing structures and moving them back further away from the and constructing new structures further away from the resource areas, which will comply with flood zone regulations. The existing septic tanks, septic tank and septic tank processor would be relocated, but the existing elevated leach field would be maintained. There's a lot going on the plan in front of you, so I'll just kind of run through it. We have salt marsh and vegetated wetland on the west side of the property, along with isolated vegetated wetland. Those are both shown in blue. And then on the northeast edge of the property, there is a jurisdictional coastal bank, which is stable and vegetated, and then a bordering vegetated wetland that exists below that, and then further to the north, a coastal beach. And so we have shown the top of the coastal bank per DEP policy as the most restrictive resource area coming from the northeast, and the isolated vegetated wetland in the southwest corner essentially is the limiting resource area in that direction. We've shown the 25, 50, and 100-foot buffer zones as well. A portion of the existing structure is within the 25-foot buffer zone, approximately 400 square feet of structural area in the 25. There is no structure proposed within the 25-foot buffer zone under the proposed conditions plan. And then we're removing both structures that exist within the 50-foot buffer zone, the main house and the cottage. And the proposed conditions, there is about 6 square feet of structure that would be left within the 50-foot buffer zone. The residential designer, I think, did an excellent job in maintaining as much as he could. You can see the jogs in the house outside of the 50, but he has one corner that he's asked if a corner of that outdoor shower, 6 square feet, given that in comparison to the much larger amount of square footage that's being removed, would be justified. There's also landscaping that's proposed. There is a significant restoration that's proposed. The existing driveway on the southwest corner of the property runs up between the salt marsh and the isolated vegetated wetland. That will all be restored. And then the new driveway will come in off of the sand road outside of the 25-foot buffer zone. So I think, again, that's a very significant improvement, whereas the existing driveway is at 2-3 feet, if you will, off of that isolated vegetated wetland. It's right along the edge. And we would be using pervious, shell or gravel shell mix for the driveways. There is a garage with a studio above it, which is located outside of the 50-foot buffer zone, the main house, and then some patios. We also filed a landscape plan along with the original application, though I did just receive a slightly updated plan that has additional details for the planting, which I expected the commission would have questions on. So I know you don't like to receive late information. I'd like to present it. And if it, satisfies what you would have asked anyway, great. And if you want to continue because you have additional questions and you just received this, I understand. But we can go either, whatever the commission's pleasure is. But I did want to get you the additional planting, knowing that there would be interest in the type of species that would be involved here. And on the plan in front of you right now, the areas that are shown in, I guess, a green crosshatch, if you will, is essentially that's the existing driveway. That's a gravel that's all being removed. The area that's being shown right now has an existing brick patio that's going to be removed. And then, the path to the beach exists, the area with the existing house. They're really, I think, going a long way to, move away from the resource areas and use native species to reestablish buffer zones in this area. So, and the waivers that we have requested, I have requested a waiver for work on the structures within the 25 and the 50 as related to essentially the removal. We would be, there's going to be a fair amount of disturbance and restoration, if you will, because we're going to remove all the remnants that have to do with any of the, existing supports for the structure and clean everything up. And because of the, small portion of that existing proposed structure, the 6 square feet in the 50. So, but again, we believe that's justified as significant long-term net benefit. On the plan in front of you, in case it wasn't clear on my other plan, the dashed line that's a lighter gray, that's the existing house. And the other existing structure is under where the main house is going right now. Where the main house is proposed. So the other waiver that we've requested is for the 2-foot separation distance to groundwater. There's really no alternative, but what we've done is that we are using crawl spaces and flood resistant construction. And the bottom of the footings would be just above the groundwater elevation. So we don't have a 2-foot separation distance, but we wouldn't go below the groundwater elevation, which was established at elevation 3.4 based on the soil testing that was done for the installation of the septic. And that's the elevation that's based on redox and a full Title V soil evaluation. So I think we have really good data as to estimated seasonal high groundwater on this site. And as you can see with that down at 3.4, we've shown elevations on here with the main dwelling, the first floor being up around 9.5. So we're doing everything we can to, stay above the water, but the 2-foot separation distance is challenging. And again, the existing conditions, the existing footings are in that zone as well. And again, I believe the overall project represents a significant net benefit compared to existing conditions, and we'd be happy to address additional questions or concerns that you might have with this application.
Thank you, Art. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? I think I just saw your hand, Seth.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Art. I think the overall intent of this application, I really appreciate it. I did have a chance to review the landscape plan, everything in there. Seems like good native, mostly salt tolerant species. So I appreciate that. I just do have 2 technical questions. One is about the proposed raised patio on the northwest part of the site. And then the other is about the outdoor shower. So regarding the proposed raised patio, do you have any details or schematic about that? I think that has the possibility to actually meet our definition of being structural. And if it did, it would be better if that was just a patio at grade. And then related to the outdoor shower. So I get you're really constrained on the site, and I get it, it's only 6 feet, but I'm thinking, an outdoor shower is basically a pad or a wooden, floor with some essentially wood walls around it. And I'm just wondering, I understand that the applicants will want privacy for that, but I'm just wondering if there's any way that would be non-structural to have that 6 feet that's in the 50-foot buffer to be done with a non-structural installation. Like, for instance, instead of having a fence around that part, you just had like a curtain rod that isn't touching the ground and could come back and forth or something like that. The south side and the east and west before that 6 feet would be the normal fence, but maybe instead of the wall or the door on the north side, there was some type of other non-structural solution to enclose the outdoor shower.
Thank you, Seth. Art, do you want to take those?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Again, I think that I hear what you're saying. I just don't know that it's, having some kind of a curtain rod type of a, situation is really going to be something that is going to be desirable, to the owners. It's essentially, it's a wood deck, which is why I did want to add a fence, or a wall, if you will, around it, which is why I did want to be sure to call it out. And the raised patio, again, I could give you a calculation. Even if you wanted to call that structure, the existing elevation, it's really in the part that's in the 50-foot buffer zone on the north side is very close. I show an existing contour at 8 and the patio's at 8.25. It's the south side that is the reason she's called it to be raised, because there would be some retaining so that it could be level. On the south side, the grade drops off, down to elevation 5 or 6 or so. So there'd be a few steps up as is shown. And all of that is actually outside of the 50-foot, except for the very small corner. And again, I think that if we were to, I could give you those numbers if that's, what's going to be needed, but we'd be talking on the order of less than say 30 square feet for all of these structural elements within the 50-foot buffer zone, whereas what currently exists on the house is 1,230 square feet within the 25 to the 50 plus the 400 square feet in the 25. So you're taking out 1,600 square feet. And then if I add in the cottage, there's another few hundred square feet. So we're talking about like taking these are rough numbers. I mean, but I'm pretty close. I can fine tune it if needed, but I think the magnitude actually speaks for itself, to take away some 2,000 square feet of structural area within the 50, and maybe at the end, as part of the overall renovation, have 30 square feet or 40 square feet left of structural area. I think is more than justifiable, as well as not having an adverse impact on the interest protected by the commission when we look at how close, the structures that currently exist and the uses. And when we factor all that together with adding, native buffer zones, I think that in some cases when I understand a waiver is a waiver, and your position to say, well, how can all of that be avoided entirely? I think that it's fair to consider every site and these particular conditions, and the overall proposal really is justified.
Thank you, Art. Everybody's hands up. Seth.
Yes, I just.
Yeah,
Right.
if I may just respond.
Yeah, I'll give you a follow-up, and then Mark, and then Linda.
Yeah, thank you, Art. I hear you, and I don't disagree. It would be good to see what that patio looks like and the amount of area. I hear what you're saying. I think represents a net benefit. It just, in cases where it is very close to being completely compliant with the performance standards, if there's not really a reason for there to be something like a raised patio, then I don't see that being justifiable. But I won't really know until I see what that looks like. It kind of sounds like it might not be raised within the 50-foot buffer area, but just would like to see it.
It is not, if I may, Madam Chair, just to that one point, it is on the southwest corner, the 4 by 3 foot corner. That's where in terms of detail, and I don't want to have too much back and forth. If we need more detail, we can get you more detail. But it would have to be retained. So certainly, but with the bottom of the wall shown at 7, it'd be like a 1 foot type. Maybe 18-inch, stone type wall around a bluestone patio. So it's not anything out of the ordinary. It's not like it is, significantly, 4 foot or engineered type of a wall. But, if you need more information, but I hope that helps to describe it.
Thank you, Art. So Mark, I'll go to you, and then Linda.
Thank you, Ashley. Art, I'm totally supportive of the waiver for the removal of the existing structure. That definitely is a net benefit. The raised patio is somewhat troubling until we have the actual elevation and the wall around it. I mean, you're starting to approach a structure, but maybe not. If it's near ground level, that probably would be okay from my standpoint. But what I did really want to ask you about, what is the actual dimensions of the outside shower?
I'd have to get back to you on that, or just give me a minute and I can let you know.
Well, I mean, it looked, I'm used to outside showers being 3 by 3. That looks about 6 by 8.
Yes.
Or more.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll get back to you. I have it open right here. It's just going to take me a second to dimension that, and I can let you know what that is. Your point is taken.
Thank you, Mark. Linda?
I've never done a 3 by 3 outdoor shower. I do these all the time at the HTC, and they're all 6 by 6. Most of them are 6 by 6 and then 6 foot tall. So basically what we're talking about here, Art, is 18 feet of fence pretty much, because now the building department doesn't consider them structures anymore. I know that's a different issue. Even if they have a wood platform, they don't consider them structures. They consider them fences. So basically what I'm looking at is a 6 foot, 6 foot, 6 foot, if that's what the size is, a fence with a wooden platform that everything can come in and out with no footings. If that's probably what I'm looking at here. And I think it's not unreasonable where it's located, and I appreciate the removal of so much program from that area of major concern. So I don't have a problem with any of this, including the 18 feet of fence.
Thank you, Linda. For our regulations, it would be considered structural. But I definitely take your point with all of the structure they're removing, that this is, may seem pretty insignificant.
Yeah, that was where I was headed. Thank you for putting it so much more eloquently than I did.
All right, Art, go ahead.
Just to answer the question, it's about 8 by 10, and it is on a deck attached to the house. So the point is well taken on the fence, and not as, especially as sometimes it relates to zoning. But I think in this case, whether this was against, I think this is a structural element.
Madam Chairman, can Art clarify this outdoor shower is going onto an existing part of the house onto the deck, so it's not at grade?
That's correct.
So it's already on something that's already disturbed, that's not being removed from the those areas that we referred to removing the structures from?
So it's on a completely new structure.
If I may, to that point, Madam Chair, I think it's a very good point. The area that we're asking for the waiver actually falls within the existing cottage.
Yeah.
So I mean, where this is going is a structure right now. I mean, it's.
Thank you.
Minus
Seth?
the structure eventually.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have experience designing or permitting outdoor showers, but from what Linda said, if a lot of these are 6 by 6, that's 36 square feet. And if this is proposed to be 8 by 10, that's 80 square feet. That's more than double what like a typical installation would be. Maybe there's a reason for that. I don't know. But I would hope that the representative would go back and consider if there's a possibility to redesign that.
Thank you, Seth. Art, I guess I'll give that over to you. Do you think there's
Well, I mean, the point's been made, and so I will discuss. I didn't design the house, and I will discuss that with them.
all right.
And I guess if I may, Madam Chair, I'd like to hear if there are any other concerns with the project, and then on that basis and what I've heard, we will ultimately request a continuance and provide additional information, the details on the patio, additional details on the outdoor shower, or a revision depending on how the direction they want to head with that.
All right. Thank you, Art. Are there any other questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no, so we'll open it up for public comment. And it does look like we have public comment from Burton Balkind. He just says he's concerned about the amount of disturbance in the 25 and 50. Is there anything that can be done to minimize the extent of disturbance in the 25 and 50?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, go ahead, Art.
We've shown siltation fencing around the perimeter, and in order to remove these structures, I try to establish a realistic, reasonable limit of work. There's retaining walls that are there. It's gonna get in order to get that stuff out of there. There will be disturbance, but it will be limited to what's been delineated on the plan, and the area will be restored per the planting plan with native species. So I think that the point is well taken. We'll share the concern, but that ultimately we're getting structures out of this area, footings, debris, anything else that exists and replacing it with, native species. So it will, and at the end of the day, I think improve the protection of the resource areas.
Thank you, Art. And this was a location, just because I know this spot, that maybe we would have like some wind conditions for when the house is getting removed so that debris wouldn't, be blowing into resource areas, but
Certainly.
that's an easy one. So if there's no other questions, Art, would you like to continue until June 9th?
Yes, please.
Okay, so this will continue until June 9th.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I've realized that my outdoor shower is really small and maybe needs to be expanded.
Benches are nice,
Yeah,
but I'll stop there. Thank you.
right. All right, so that'll move us on to Nantucket Island's Land Bank at 231 Pulpus Road, and we have Rachel Freeman on to represent this one.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Rachel Freeman, and I am on tonight representing the Land Bank, and we are requesting permission to treat invasive species at 231 Pulpus Road. This property is approximately 15 acres and was purchased by the Land Bank in 2017. Since that time, we have removed a house that was in disrepair, and we have replanted some species that were originally there and no longer did not survive the house move. And we have basically opened it up into a public park. This park is entirely surrounded by bordering vegetated wetland, and there is a small pond that is known as Reyes Pond, hence why it's called the Reyes Pond property. In addition to having a house, at the time that the Land Bank purchased this property, there was a pretty large extent of love grass and Scotch broom and bamboo as well. We have since been working on eradicating the bamboo, and that is going well. In the interim, we have realized that the Scotch broom and the love grass are continuing to expand on the property. And we would also like to work on removing these species as well. Our intention at this time is to use glyphosate as the active ingredient. We use rodeo that is not pre-mixed as Roundup, and we use a surfactant called limonene, and we add that in ourselves. We will be treating this by, direct application to these plants, and our intention is to, minimize any runoff to any surrounding species. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Rachel. Seth, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not questions, but just a few points. First of all, I'm really happy to see this application. It's important to note that MIPAG, the Massachusetts Invasive Plant Advisory Group, last winter, they had officially decided to list both Scotch broom and weeping lovegrass as invasive plants. They're still waiting for the EEA to consider putting them on the prohibited plant list, but MIPAG has officially declared them invasive. They also are contained in our regulations already as being invasive on Nantucket. So I don't think that the Land Bank actually necessarily needs the waiver they're requesting for the invasive species work, because I think it's already contained in Article 5 of our regulations that pre-permits invasive species management. They might need the waiver for removing the tree within the 25-foot buffer, but I don't think they need the waiver for actually doing the invasive species work.
Thank you, Seth. So I just, I guess, want to make a comment about the tree that you want to remove. And I know that some people are aware of this, but snags or standing dead trees are a really important habitat for, birds that end up making cavities. I realize that this is a cedar and it'll take a little bit longer to make those sort of cavities. But I would love it if you guys could keep the snag. I just feel like there needs to be more education to the habitat value of things like that. And I know, I've been walking a lot in the state forest where they have left the majority of their snags, and there's red-bellied woodpeckers in one tree cavity. I mean, they're just full of life. So I would love to have that maybe left for kind of a public education piece, that they can be there and snags are beautiful as habitat. But I don't know, Rachel, if that's a possibility.
I don't think that would be our first choice. We have a lot of snags that we do leave. And somebody was just commenting to us actually that there's trees down around the outside edge of the pond. And our intention was just to leave them. We do worry a little bit when we have dead trees that are in super public areas, because a lot of times what we do end up having happen is, we lose limbs and they eventually become a public safety hazard. The other reason that we really wanted to replace this one is because we were hoping to replace it with this in-kind species, because this property has been treated a little bit like a botanical garden and a little bit like an arboretum, where there's some really interesting tree species. And this is an Atlantic white cedar, which we just felt like was a great tree, and we would love to have another one in the area. So those were kind of our rationales. I do recognize the value of snags. We do actually work to leave them, not directly in the public way, but we do definitely work to leave them there. So
thank you. And I totally appreciate that reasoning. Seth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I also appreciate snags. I think they do provide good habitat value. But just in response to, I spend a lot of time at this property. In response to your notion about woodpecker activity, this is actually one of the most productive woodpecker places on island already. There's lots of known trees for sapsuckers, downies, flickers, red-bellied woodpeckers, and there is quite a bit of snag activity if you go back farther to the south of the property already, a little bit of ways from the ponds where it gets shaded in there. So I think in this specific case, the habitat function for those species already exists on site. But I do think generally, if it doesn't, it's a super important thing to consider.
Thank you for that, because I'm not as familiar with this site to know that there are enough more snags there. So thank you. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like, oh, Seth?
Yeah, sorry, just really, so, well, they're asking for a waiver for that, because they're going to replace Atlantic white cedar, which obviously is not a native species to Nantucket. So I think we definitely would need the waiver in that case. Then, and I do recognize that this property has been designated as arboretum, and they have done effective interpretation and signage for some of the other species there. So I think we would want to request that they do the same for this new tree.
It looks like you're shaking your head. Yes, Rachel?
yeah, definitely.
Okay. So if there are no other comments, it does not appear that we have public comment, but if anybody does have public comment, now is the time to speak up. Jeff, do we have everything we would need to close this one? Are we waiting?
We do. It's just a little tricky because part of the site's mapped natural heritage, but the work area that they're in, I don't believe is within natural heritage. So while the box is checked, yes, I don't believe that the work that they're proposing is subject to jurisdiction.
Okay,
I never really, may I ask a question?
yes.
That's actually something that I never really know the answer to. So if the property itself is in natural heritage jurisdiction, but not the area specific to the work, then we don't necessarily have to file with natural heritage. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, you're technically still supposed to file with them, and they send you back the letter that says you don't need to apply, and then they
Okay.
send you back your check.
Okay.
But it seems like a lot of extra bureaucracy for no reason, to be perfectly
Right.
honest.
So I guess my question is, are we safe to close without that part of the process being taken care of?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Rachel, would you like to close?
Yes, please.
Is there a motion to close? Motion made by Mark, seconded by Seth. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
So that moves us on to certificates of compliance. We have Snowden at 11 Massachusetts Avenue. Represented by Jeff Blackwell. All right.
Good evening. Sorry. This is a project, an order of conditions that was originally issued for the renovation of the structure, an older structure on the property. And then, excuse me, subsequently, an amendment was requested and issued for the walkway across the salt marsh. So both the home renovation and the boardwalk has been completed, and the project was constructed per the order of conditions, and we're requesting a sign off at this time.
Thank you, Jeff Blackwell. Jeff Carlson, has staff been out to review this one?
Yes, we have been out there, and we are recommending the issue of the certificate of compliance without any ongoing conditions.
Okay. Seth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I remember when we did this, there was concern about like possible handrail or cable. So it's been constructed with none of that.
Through the chair, that's correct. There's no handrail or cabling along. It's just a flat surface, 24 inches roughly above grade.
Thank you. Seth?
Thank you. Thank you, Seth, for prodding our memory on that one. That was a pretty good point that we all made, or you made.
Move the issue as drafted.
All right. Sarah, are you seconding, Mark?
Yes.
All right. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
You too. And that moves us on to Perticari. I'm sure I pronounced that one wrong, at 111 Hummock Pond Road, represented by Brian Madden.
Thank you very much. Brian Madden representing the applicants. This order of conditions was issued back in 2008, and which we were involved with, and mitigation plantings were initially stalled back then and are now robustly in good shape. They were subsequently expanded through, there was an amendment request, an amended order that required an expanded mitigation area. Those areas were subsequently planted, but everything is looking good. And the overall project for the raise and rebuild of the structure is in substantial compliance with the order of conditions.
Thank you, Brian. Seth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't believe this made it into our packet, unfortunately. But I'll let Jeff say his piece.
Yeah, it looks like Jeff has something to add.
Sorry, I'll bring the plan up. Sorry about that. So this is the area that Brian was talking about. Hopefully you can see it on the plan where it was replanted and is regrowing. And the houses as shown, we would agree that the restoration area is back and growing correctly. And we felt pretty comfortable with it. With it being an older order, it didn't have any really substantial monitoring components that went with it or anything. So we do feel that we could issue the certificate of compliance on that.
Thank you, Jeff. Sorry, if you could just stop the screen share.
All right. My mouse decided not to work there for a minute.
Yeah, my computer's a little glitchy tonight too, so not great. So does anybody have any questions for Jeff or Brian, or would anybody like to make a motion to issue the cert? Linda, are you making the motion? Was that a yes?
Yes, waving.
So motion made by Linda. Is there a second? Seconded by Mark. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Harrisman, aye. Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
You too. So that moves us on to orders of conditions. I believe we just have one tonight, which is Meyer at 307 Pulpus Road.
So let me get that one open. I didn't send it. I do actually have one ready for the land bank property at 231 Pulpus as well. If you guys want to see that one too, I can share the screen when we get there. But for Meyer, this is the one that we closed tonight after waiting for the St. Andrews Cross survey. Sorry, I just couldn't remember the plant there for a second. Have been going along. And this is the one, I think the noteworthy spot here is we ended up not needing to discuss or grant the waiver related to the 2-foot separation of groundwater because they changed the foundation design to be crawl space only to avoid that. So that was left out for what's there. Other than that, I have our kind of our standard conditions related to those things. Plantings, and then just some photo monitoring for all that restoration work that was being done.
Thank you, Jeff. Does anybody have any questions or amendments? Mark?
I have one comment, and that is I'm mighty impressed, Jeff, that when you sent the email out, it said draft order for tonight, because you always, to drop the S was showed a lot of good planning on your part.
I'm not new to this, Mark. Not new.
Writing on the
So-
wall.
Seth, I see your hand up.
So we don't need the waiver that's in our draft, or we still do need that for other work?
Well, we still need the rest of it for all of the rest of the work that's there. But it's specifically that performance standard, that 302B1, also normally includes the requirement for the 2-foot separation to groundwater. So I purposely removed that portion of the performance standard because we're not granting a waiver to that because the project doesn't require it anymore. So I just wanted to make sure that that got in there because the rest of the performance standard is included.
Thank you, Jeff. If there aren't any other questions, comments, or amendments, would somebody like to make a motion to issue as drafted? Mark, you making
I'll
that
second.
motion?
Second.
Seconded by Linda. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And Jeff, if you do have the 231 Pulpus Road Land Bank order, might as well look at it.
All right, so just to run through it really quickly, given the conversation, so in the permit overview, I like the fact I'm pointing at my screen like you guys can see it, but you can't. So I do call out the section 503 for the invasive species removal in the permit overview. And then we have kind of our normal suite of excuse me, I'm choking on my words here. Of invasive species. They did request the use of glyphosate for some of the treatment that's there. So we have our normal herbicide things. 21, I actually have changed recently because thanks to the Linda Loring project, we did some discussion about it. And some of the things made some sense where we have this: any plant material removed from the site is to be disposed of through the digester at the landfill or disposed of as best practices allow. I've added into the example being when they ended up like chipping up the black pine on that site and removing it as wood chips, they end up usually on the wood chip pile out at the landfill because it's not going to spread from the chips. So they don't end up through the digester. So sometimes there are invasive species where that's not necessarily needed or really a good idea. So just tweak that a little bit, and then some photo monitoring, kind of our normal regrowth condition. And then there is the waiver at the end for the removal of the white cedar and replanting of the native species within the 25.
Thank you, Jeff. Can we maybe make a finding about the snag, just that they do have habitat value? Would anybody be able
Sure. We can do it too.
Does everyone know what snags mean?
So it says a standing dead tree.
Kind of figured that. And there are quite a few of them on that property, actually.
Yes. Got it.
It's a-
Madam
check
Chair,
that. Yes, Seth?
I have a couple additional points.
Yes.
Okay.
Jeff,
So
are you
just-
ready?
Just to get started on that, yeah, if people throw it out there, so I just put it, the commission finds that snags may provide significant habitat value and should be maintained if possible. Kind of vague, but hopefully that gets the point you're looking for
Yeah.
discussion at least.
It does. And then Seth, you said you have some points to add?
Yes, thank you. So related to the disposal of plant material, I think that adding the best practices allow is good in theory, because sometimes there's no point in putting it through the digester, but I don't want that to turn into people just deciding, doing whatever they want. So could we maybe amend it to say, like, through approval of commission staff, or by submitting a plan to commission staff? Yeah, that's fine. And then lastly, I would like to have an additional finding 3 that says, given that this property has been designated as arboretum, all trees installed should have appropriate signage and interpretation.
Makes sense. 3, given that this property has been designated as an arboretum, all installed trees should have appropriate signage.
I think that's fine.
That's a good addition, Seth.
I felt like I wanted to add more words there, but I couldn't figure out good ones to put. So that seemed, I feel like it needs something else, but I just can't think of what it would be.
Sometimes straight and to the point is the best. Does anybody have any other questions, comments, amendments to this order? Looks like no. So would somebody like to make a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
Motion made by Linda. Is there a second? Seconded by Seth.
Actually, like one technical question.
Oh, yep. Go ahead, Seth.
So are we allowed to actually issue it if it wasn't listed in the order of conditions on our agenda?
Yes, we list them all on the agenda as a just in case, but there's the little parenthetical statement next to order of conditions. So since we closed it, we're eligible to discuss and issue it.
Okay, second.
All right, seconded by Seth. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Harrisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Great. Thank you, Jeff, for being so good at crafting those quickly.
Yeah.
So
Anything to make next agendas shorter is always a good choice in my book.
would agree. So that moves us on to other business, approval of minutes from May 12th. I don't know, Jeff, since Seth wasn't there, there's only 3 of us who were there to approve the minutes. Is that something we need to hold on?
No, you can go ahead with it.
You can vote.
Okay,
No, you have a quorum existing, so you can still vote on it.
okay.
I'll make that motion.
All right, so is there a second? Seconded by Mark. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Abstain.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
So that carries with Commissioner Engelborg abstaining. And that moves us on to discussion of regulatory update.
Oh, I kept this on there. People have been sending comments in. So keep those coming in. And I was just wondering if you guys wanted to schedule a time to have a formal discussion of those in the next week or so.
Hey,
Yes,
here. I'm in New Jersey for my father's funeral starting Wednesday, and I don't come back until the following Tuesday.
Do we want to maybe think about in between next Thursday?
I'm away.
Oh, so you're leaving next Wednesday to Tuesday?
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
coming
so
back Tuesday the 7th, I think, something like that.
okay.
And there's no way I'm gonna be on sitting in a Kohl's parking lot during that time. I've got 30 relatives coming and 500 people coming to his funeral.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the public hearing to vote on them. It's just to kind of get through initial comments, but we could set a different time too.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Seth?
I also won't be able to attend on that day, so I'd prefer a separate time if possible.
Okay.
Or do you want to have the first discussion as part of the June 9th meeting? Then we
Sure.
can schedule specials after that.
Yeah, let's put it on there, I think, because it sounds like it might be difficult to schedule between now and then.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get that. And if people have comments, please send them in and we'll get them all compiled to send around.
Yes. Seth?
Yeah, I mean, I know we'll talk about this further, but I did just want to clarify one thing that was submitted about this adjacent upland resource area. So for those of you who haven't had the chance to read the bylaws that went around or the regulations from the other towns, I would just suggest, especially Arlington is very relevant to what we might want to do. I'm not sure necessarily we actually need to create that resource area or not. We might be able to get the same type of protections by keeping the buffer zone model that we have. But I would suggest that we consider some of the language that's in the Arlington aura section because it's pretty powerful. So everybody read that, please.
Thank you, Seth, for providing that information because I agree. I'm often concerned about what's happening in the buffer zone as they have, a lot of value. So thank you for sending that around. So if there's no other kind of comments about the regulatory update, we'll schedule a discussion for June 9th and then go from there. So that moves us on. Oh, Jeff, were you going to say something?
I'm good.
That moves us on to enforcement actions, potential enforcement actions.
Nothing to really bring up this evening. We have a few that we'll have updates for the 9th that we just are working on putting together.
Okay. So that brings us to reports. Crack is not here. CPC.
All quiet on the Western Front.
Okay. We also don't have NP and EDC, so not many reports tonight. Commissioners' comments. Linda?
Again, very well run meeting, Madam Chairman, and an hour and 26 minutes.
Not done yet.
No,
We're getting there.
we're getting there. Light agenda for us, which is always a treat.
Yep.
Seth, I saw your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Jeff, apologies if you're gonna get into this next, but I don't know if you had an update about the Sacajapond pond mat project that you could, let the commission know about.
Sure. All right. So Seth had some questions through some emails about the identification of the widgeon grass as it relates to the Sacajapond benthic barrier project. The consultant that had done that identification for us is Ken Wagner. He's one of the specialists that we've used before. We've asked Ken to send us the verification for his identification and how he either keyed that out, the methodology used, any photographs, any confirming documentation to do that. Ken and I traded some phone calls this morning, and I was hoping to have that for the meeting this evening, but he didn't send that in. So as soon as I have that from him, I'll send that around, but he knows that's expected. The other delay with getting that information is that Thais is on vacation right now. So she was our primary contact on that, but we'll hopefully have that, hopefully even first thing in the morning. He knows we were supposed to have that for tonight. So hopefully we'll have that, but I'll follow up with Ken, but it should be on its way for why he determined that it was widgeon grass and how, and the information that he used.
Seth, go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you to Jeff. And just one more question. Have the benthic barriers been installed already, or is that still waiting to happen?
So they were installed just prior to that. If they need to come out, I don't think that's a big problem. They're pretty easy to move in and out for what it is. I know the area that was put down on when they were installed was mostly bare anyways. Stuff hadn't come up yet. So they're pretty easily moved and removed.
Thank you, Jeff. And Seth, for your questions. Any other commissioners' comments? Looks like no. So Jeff, will give it over to you for administrator staff reports.
So the one thing I had a mark on the agenda still for in-person meetings. So the governor hasn't extended the July 1st remote meeting order. So as we are rapidly approaching the 1st of July, I have us booked in full remote through June still. So we'll still be on Zoom and YouTube. But there's a better than average chance that we're probably going to have to be back in person for July. And I left this on there just for if we would like to have our meetings in the lovely trailer next to the Natural Resources and Health Department office at 131 Pleasant Street, or if we would like to see if the community room at Four Fairgrounds is available for our meetings instead. They both have the ability to still stream on YouTube, so people can watch on YouTube. I know the board's indicated before that they're not interested in a hybrid meeting. So public participation would just be done in person. So I guess I was just more curious which location you guys would prefer to be in for those two spaces.
Seth?
Personally, the public safety facility room is a lot nicer. So if it's available, I'd prefer to be there. But I guess we'll see about scheduling.
I'm with you, Seth, on that one. I mean, ugliest building on Nantucket doesn't appeal very much. We ought to put the HDC, we ought to put the Board of Selectmen in there.
Well, we'd gladly take it back at the school where we don't have enough space, regardless. of what it's like, I would go to either space, really. I do worry about the trailer, just even though your offices will be closed, like the parking might get a little tight sometimes. And is there a bathroom in there?
Yes,
There are two bathrooms in there.
yes.
Well, that's good. At least that there's facilities for.
Or if you guys want, before the next field viewing on the 7th, if you guys want to go through that, you guys can see the inside of the trailer before you find on the side. But I will try to book us into, maybe I'll try to book us into both spaces and tell her we'll pick. At
What's
start.
the other space? Jeff, I missed that.
It's just the community room, so the first floor of 4 Fairgrounds, or the trailer here at 131 Pleasant.
Well,
This-
the
and
the ugliest building on Nantucket. Yay.
And the selectmen, I mean, the town has blocked off the second floor of the fairgrounds building.
Yes, we've already
Yes.
tried. The HTC has tried, the planning board has tried. It's just Charlie made the decision that we are not able to have access to that room. It's just for their use.
Wow.
Yeah.
Seems
Space for town,
unfortunate.
not our use.
Yeah.
So we're
Wow.
stuck with the community room downstairs. There are other groups that are using it at the same time. Jeff, there may be a chance to move something like Shab or something else or whatever's over there at that point into the trailer, since we have more public participation.
Yes, we also get a little bit of priority being a regulatory board. So
Well,
I
the
will work
HTC
on the
also-
scheduling of that. I just wanted to see which you guys prefer.
I'll go wherever we can get space.
Yeah. And I'll forever miss that upstairs room at
Oh,
Fairgrounds.
yeah. Absolutely. Forever miss that room.
Any other information from you, Jeff?
Nope.
All right, so that moves us on to our executive session. So we have two purposes outlined in the agenda. The first is to discuss strategy with respect to litigation with regard to SBPF Geotextile Tube Project Removal Order, where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the Conservation Commission. Second, to discuss strategy related to the proposed memorandum of understanding between the Town of Nantucket Select Board and the Sconset Beach Preservation Fund with respect to litigation with the Sconset Beach Preservation Fund Geotextile Tube Project Removal Order, where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the Conservation Commission. So we just need a motion to enter into executive session with the purpose to adjourn in executive session and not return to open session.
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Right, so motion made by Linda. I'll give you the second, Seth. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And we'll see everybody shortly in executive session.
Just give me like 30 seconds to get it started if you're a little bit.
You don't need 35 seconds?
I'll go as fast as I can.